all of you, and I'm very grateful. I work as a strategist, developer, and educator of human rights and democracy, and I've done that for 25 years. And I started to get really interested about these questions when I was a child. I grew up in a very political environment, not at home, but at kindergarten, because most of the people working there were not trained as working with kids. They were young male people that didn't want to do the military service, and then they worked in the kindergarten instead as a service. And as they had a political statement not to bear arms, I got really interested on their political views, and I became an activist at 5 years old. My dad and my mom didn't understand anything of this because they were not political at all, but they held something really, really important. They knew two things that was important, and that was that I was equal in every sense, and they always took me really, really seriously. And that was not a political view, that was their behaviors. They didn't talk about things they believed in, they did what they believed in. And that shaped everything for me. My mom was a true activist at heart in the way she did things. It didn't matter where we were in town. I want you to picture this, she's really short. She's not someone that you see immediately, but she didn't put up with anything that was wrong. If some big guy was threatening, a skinhead was threatening someone else, she came in between. And she had some really good power. She had a way of understanding, but also the way of settling things down. And she always did, fearlessly. It didn't matter if it was someone that hit a child or said something racist or did something really wrong. She always put an effort to do something and to solve the situation immediately. She was, in her actions, really brave, and she is really brave. They both live with my parents. So it was not a theory of being equal or believing in human rights. It was a way of living. And I'm really grateful for that. And for me, talking to you today, I can't do that without touching the conflict that we are in right now, the environment globally that we're in right now. We can talk about gender equality or diversity or anything, not acknowledging nationalism and other fascism growing around the world. The pure fundamental human rights are at stake in every modern democracy all over the world. And we are a part of those systems as well. If democracy falls, nothing that we talk about today will stand. 2 years ago, I started the Human Rights Foundation with the only goal to secure and educate around our Constitution, to look upon the fundamental rights of non-discrimination, equality, democracy, and human rights within our Swedish Constitution. And our Constitution is not really good. In Finland, it's better. Because when you change something within the Constitution in Finland, you need 2/3 of the parliament to accept a change, and then an election, and then another decision with 2/3 of the parliament. If someone in Sweden thinks that democracy or equality or discrimination is not important to work with within the law, if someone wants to change the Constitution and take that away, it only takes 51% in the parliament in Sweden. We have no secure ways of saving our Constitution. It's too fragile. And I've been looking at our Constitution, comparing it with other countries all over the world. In Germany, for example, where they know that someone can be chosen in a democratic way, but then overthrow democracy, as they truly have a dark, dark chapter within history. Part of the Constitution in Germany that states that Germany is a democracy built on human rights, those articles are not possible to change. But in Sweden, it takes 51%. So our democracy is fragile. Our values are fragile. And we can never take them for granted. And this conflict we live in is older than us. It started long ago, before all of you were born. And it will continue long before we're all dead. And our children and grandchildren will inherit this conflict. It was never over. And we will always have to fight for these values and never ever take them for granted. So that's with that kind of seriousness I want to address you today. So what is the foundation of equality? Well, it's a long history. And in 1948, after the World War, the Second World War, Eleanor Roosevelt had a committee with the aims of finding a document that they hoped that the most countries in the world would sign. And it was a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But it wasn't a product within that narrow time. They were they had a very high standard of the work in this committee, and they went through over 300 documents, the oldest over 4,000 years old, within human history, where we in different places and time address human dignity and human rights. And they mixed them together to make people, no matter what they believed, no matter what political ideology they had, that they could agree on this thing together. And there was one thing that was really important in this work, many other things, but there was a big conflict within this group, in this committee. And Hansa Mehta, who was one of the parts in this group, who came from India, she didn't want the word men to be used in this declaration. Because when we talk about human beings, we say all men, as men are a word for humans. But she said that if we were to use the word men, it would be, people would not understand it or take advantage of the misinterpretation of that word. So she really, really fought hard to have the expression human beings as a word used within the Declaration of Human Rights. So no one could misunderstand the meaning of our equalness, just being existing humans. I'm not going to go through all this, but I want you to have some ground for all these principles, to understand what they are built on. If you want to be an organization that fights for equality and non-discrimination, I think it's important to know these pillars that holds everything up. The first article in the Human Rights states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity. In Swedish, the official Swedish article of this is, I don't think they use the right word, because in Swedish we say, alla människor är födda fria och lika i värde och rättigheter. We say that all humans are born free and equal in worth. But worth is not a synonym of dignity. What does dignity mean? Dignity is in Swedish pronounced as värdighet. And I think that most countries all over the world, I think it's in Sweden and another country that use the word worth. Dignity is human dignity. And human dignity is something you have because you're a human being, not because of anything else. It's nothing you gain because you are a value or an asset. It's nothing you gain with age, that if you're grown up, you get more dignity, and less if you're a child. Dignity is something that we have to secure just on the basis of our existence. Existing as a human being requires that we choose to act on equal dignity. It's not a choice, it's something we have to do. We can disagree, we don't need to like and understand each other, what we need to meet and talk and act on the fundamental ground of dignity, something that we have to give one another. That's the basis of the things that we have to do one another. And we should have conflicts. Human rights is not about not having conflicts. We should have conflicts in the workplace. We should have conflicts in a country. That is really important. But always conflicts with dignity. And you know, when you go online and you see people being in conflict with each other, they suddenly stop arguing about the ideas and the things that they disagree on, and very quickly start to address each other in a very disgustful way. So it's that difference that we should have any kind of conflict, but always with dignity. 5 summers ago, I was in Almedalen, a big political event in Sweden. And I had my 2 daughters in a carriage. And when we passed one of the nationalistic parties' tents, one of them stopped, looked me in the eyes, and spat on my youngest daughter, 3 years old, and screamed things that I could never say to you. And the thing is that he holds the right to his opinions. He holds the right to believe what he wants, to want what he wants, to think what he wants. But he doesn't own the right to do what he wants. He could be in conflict with me, but always with dignity. And that means that you can never spit on anyone. And of course, I don't hold his opinions or values, but I'm not allowed to spit on his children or on him. It's equal fundamental rights, but also things that we have to do. So we should have conflicts in a workplace, but always with dignity. And as soon as it doesn't become like that, we're on a very, very dangerous road. And that's why within law, we have laws against discrimination, against violence, against sexual abuse, against bullying, against all these things. They are part of our law and constitutional fundamental rights to not experience. Because when you hit someone or say something like that, you actually break the first part of the human rights as not addressing another human being with dignity. Violence breaks dignity. Sexual abuse breaks dignity. That's why. So you could say that in a democracy, you can think what you want, but you can't do what you want. And that's the difference between a democracy and a nationalistic ethnocracy. Because in a nationalistic society, you're not allowed to be what you want. In a democracy, you can be whatever you want. But we set rules on what you can do, but never who you are or what you think. Equality, or the sense of equality and fairness, is nothing that is only part of the human beings. It's part of many mammals, actually. The need of fairness, the need of equal rights. And what I want you to show you right now is a situation where 2 close relatives to us, 2 apes, have a situation where they have not equal pay, but do the same work. And I want you to see how they react to that inequality. They do the same thing. They're supposed to take a stone and give it to the scientist, and if they do that, they get paid in cucumbers. That's perfectly fine. But suddenly one gets a raise. He gets a grape. And that's far more better. So we're going to see what happens if you do the same work, but are treated in a different way and actually get non-equal pay for the same kind of work.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees, but with Sarah Brosnan we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group, they know each other, we take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
We don't like equality. We really don't. We are part of this family, and that part of our brain is really old. We don't like non-fair play. We like fair play, we like equality, and when a society gets stressed and we think that someone gets something more than you, it becomes distressed in many ways. And it doesn't have to be true. It's just enough that we think that someone else is getting something that I don't, and it brings out aggressiveness. It also means that it's super important to hold these values intact. And it's super important to treat each other equally. Not only not to get into arguments to do with a fundamental ground for a possible chance of being a society that holds together, or a workplace that is functioning in any way. These ideas has to do with how we think a human being, what it is. And I'm going to draw you a picture that I've developed through these years to understand these fundamental ideas and the things that we talk about. And I think I'm just going to pull it gently a little forward here. If we think, we can say that a human being is like an iceberg. And this is my drawing of an iceberg, not as pretty as you might do over there, but we'll take this for a, perhaps it looks like a chart, but it's an iceberg. And the thing is that we only see the exterior. I only see the exterior of you. I see your haircut, your hairstyle, perhaps the color of your skin or your clothing. I can see from here that you're all really good looking, but I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. And we have a lot of exterior things that we see. And I guess a lot of things because I don't know. And it is a little dark in here. And I can see that you're, what kind of color of your skin. Perhaps if you're a male or a female. But it's just guesses. Perhaps what I think your age is, but it's just a guess. Where you're from, origin. So I have a lot of guesses, but nothing else. And we judge each other because of this a lot. And here comes one of the fundamental things that I talked about earlier. In a democracy based on human rights, we don't put value on how you look like. We don't put value on what you are. We put value on what you do. A democracy builds laws that puts boundaries for the things that you can and cannot do, but never boundaries of what you can or can be. I mean, you can look wherever you want to. You can change it if you can, if you want to. You have the right to dress the way you want. It's no problem for you to have a hat or not. The government is not interfering in your clothing. The government is interfering in your behavior and your actions. It's what you do, not what you look like or what you are that is important. So no matter what, it is the actions that matters. And you are responsible for your own actions, not the actions of others or people that look like you. You're responsible for your own actions, not your family's actions or the people born in the same country as you action, your actions alone. It's what you do that matters. If you abuse someone, if you threaten someone, if you use violence against someone, that's something you do, and we're equal before that law. It's not what we are, what we look like, we also do. And on the inside, we have the things that are moving all the time. Our knowledge, our experiences, our motivation, and other things. And the thing is that this has nothing to do with this. There's no knowledge that comes with that I am born in Mexico, being a woman, having ADHD, and a part Asperger, being a diabetic. We cannot continue all afternoon. That is what I have, but that is not what I do, and that is not what I am. It has nothing to do with the other. And that's why we have laws of discrimination, because one other fundamental principle is that you are not supposed to be valued because of this. But if you're going to seek for a job, or if you put a salary on someone, it has to do with this, what you know and what you do. We can't recruit anyone because of this. We recruit people on the basis of value people here and on their actions. If we don't, we are discriminating. If I choose a man before I'm a woman in a recruitment situation, I'm acting on discrimination. Because it's not good being a woman, as I am. And it's never bad. It's nothing you can value. It's not good being born in Mexico City, and it's not bad, because it's nothing that you can value. It has no value, but it has a human value and should never be put apart because I'm a human. That's a way of being human. It doesn't matter if I have a piece of clothing on my head, being a Muslim, things that I believe. And then we have something down here, and that's the private dimension of us. You can believe what you want. You can vote for what you want. You can have your opinions, no matter what you want. Your sexual identity, your identity no matter what. Your gender identity, your sexual identity, your culture. And these are so important that they are part of laws that it contains discrimination, but also part of the constitutional rights for you. Because you can believe what you want. You can create a new political party, you can vote what you want, you can have what identity you want, you can have your sexual orientations. It doesn't matter. You're free to do this, to believe this, to be this. But no matter how this is, we're still responsible for our actions. And we're equal in that sense. No one of us can discriminate or act violent or no matter what. But these are the fundamental rights we have. So, I can wear a burqa, I don't know the English word, so like, you can wear clothing around your head because of your belief. You can look no way you want, every way you want. A democracy does not choose the wardrobe for you. A democracy does not choose what you should believe in or not. A democracy holds you responsible only because of the things that you do. And if you threaten other people's freedom, you do something that none of us are able to do or defend doing. We can't use our freedoms to suppress or take away freedoms from others. That is fundamental. I can't use my freedom of speech to hate someone online. I can't use my freedom of opinion doing something wrong to a colleague at the coffee table at work. I can be a sexist, but I can't do sexism. I can be a racist, but I can't do racism. Then I'm breaking the laws. And this is really important that we understand. And the thing is that it's a little complex for me, yes, we kind of misunderstood this. But I want to just shortly have a short clip about these questions, put brilliantly by Martin Luther King. Something that was really important, not the whole speech, just a part of it. Trying to understand what's at stake, trying to understand this conflict, trying to understand these fundamental values.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together
In a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of the character that only shows in our actions. We can believe really good things, but people with good beliefs and with good moral and that are really insightful can do really stupid things. You're not cured from being stupid or breaking the law just that you hold the values that are great. It's not about values in that sense. It's how you act that is important. And I am frauding myself all the time. I hold values that is really important with the environment. But I took a flight just 2 days ago. And I have a belief that I am a really sporty kind of person because I used to be in my youth. And when I put up my wallet, I can see that I am, because I have a card to the local workout place near where I live, but I'm not there. It's what you do that is important. And you can have a policy for gender equality and equality and whatever you want, but it's what you do on a daily basis. It's how you do equality. It's how you do human rights. It's how you do these things that matters. And what you do if something goes wrong. We know that if God forbid, would start a fire, we would know to follow those signs and know where to go. And it's the same thing at the workplace. Everyone needs to know the rules, and everyone needs to know what happens if you break them, and everyone needs to know where to go if it happens, and everyone needs to know what happens when they tell someone it happens. And if you don't know that, it doesn't matter. It's what you act and how you use that trust for someone telling you things that have happened that is really important for you to act on. It's about leadership, but it's also about basic fundamental laws and rules. You know, some of you perhaps like football. I do. And football is a conflict, right? There are two teams that fight, but they do it with rules. And they have a judge there. Everyone knows what to do and what not to do. And if you do something wrong, you will be probably put aside from the game. And if the whole team were to hit the other team, they would be expelled for the season. We know these things, they're not really complicated. And it's the same thing at the workplace. Everyone should know that. And everyone should be safe knowing what will happen if they address something like that. It's what you do, not what values you have. And not what documents you have. It's what you do. And then it's interesting, if we were to see a human being like this that is moving all the time and changing all the time, I really want you to understand the difference of looking upon a human being in two different ways. There are people that think that we are born in a certain way, that we kind of inherit some kind of behavior that is just going to be there no matter what. That if you were born a man, you're a certain way, you're born a woman, you're a certain way. If you're born an immigrant, you're in a special way. If you're born in Sweden, you should be in a special way. But I know, as a scientific, just proven scientifically, I know that being born in Söderfjords, where my two children were born, that there is nothing in the ground under the building that sends some kind of things up to that certain place where they were born, that kind of gets into their brains that they will be a certain way. There's no relation. It doesn't matter what country you were born. It has nothing to do with anything on what you are and what you do. I get a cultural background, not when I am born, but when I die. It's something that develops all the time, and it changes depending on who you meet. There's no person that has one tradition, one culture, or one way of being. You are always different in different situations, and you will change throughout your life, and change depending on who you meet. And that's why I really want to stress this, because we live in that norm, and you've all been probably in an interview when someone asks you if you're going to be recruited to this job, and ask you, who are you? Are you a leader? Are you introvert? Are you a funny person? Are you good at criticism? What are you? And you can never answer that question, because you haven't met your colleagues yet. In certain teams, you're a leader. In other teams, you're not. In certain teams, you're really funny. In other teams, you make awkward jokes. In some boss you had, you really liked, and you got really motivated and kind of jumped out of bed and went to work, inspired, motivated. And another boss made you want to crawl back in bed and not go there, because you felt bad. The things that we are and the things we do changes depending on who we are with. And that's why leadership and the environment and the workplace is so important. Is it constructive and good, then people can be really, really good. But if it's destructive and full of sexism or racism or bullying or whatever what, it will be, and you will be, in consequence of that. I'm going to show you a short film, and I had a for me to show you this, and because it's an example of what I want to talk about. And my oldest one is called Anin, and my youngest one is June. And this is 1 month before she starts school, the oldest one, Anin. And we went out of the car, going up to her house, and suddenly she says, "Oh, Mom, it's really, really, I'm a little stressed. I have to go." "Where do you have to go?" "Just take the camera up." And I thought it was like, first I thought, when you gotta go to the toilet. That's probably something that's really urgent. But it wasn't that. It was a much more important urgency. "It's Michael Jackson." "What?" It's Michael Jackson. "Can you please take up the camera? Can you film this?" And I took it up, and I didn't know what to expect. And suddenly, this is what happens when you gotta go. And I didn't know that. She had no training in dancing, and we don't play much Michael Jackson music at home, but 2 years earlier, we saw a clip on YouTube when me and the father of the children talked about music we listened to when we were young. And that kind of stuck in her brain and stayed there, and she got inspired, and when you gotta go, you gotta go. She doesn't look like Michael Jackson. She has not the same gender as Michael Jackson. She's never met Michael Jackson. She's not born in the same country as Michael Jackson. But it doesn't matter because she's a human being. And human beings mirror themselves in other human beings' behaviors. And we get inspired of the things that people do, not what they are. It's not enough. It's not enough to me to meet a boss that is born in Mexico that has ADHD and a part Asperger and a diabetic and a part of a minority Indian tribe in Mexico. That is not inspiring to me. What is inspiring to me, it was that person will do. And that means that good leaders for me can look any kind of way. It's their behaviors that secures gender equality and human rights and fairness. It's action. It's not a being. And if you get inspired by Michael Jackson, you do. And she started school. And 3 weeks after, she stopped dancing. And 1 month later, she stopped talking. You are in a relationship with other people. And if that classroom, or those people in that classroom tells you that you're not worth anything, that you're a fool, who do you think you are, what do you look like, if you are bullied, your self-esteem and your actions will transform. She's being devastated, depressed, and sad and alone is nothing that you're born with. It's something that happens based on other people's actions. And it took time. And we went to school, we had this meeting with the teachers, and one teacher said, well, she was really stuck on what she was. And she said, well, she has autism. So it's really hard for her to learn things. And my husband, who has Asperger, wrote down in a notebook what only I could see. And he said, it's really clear to me that the teachers has a really hard time to teach other people. It's not her problem of learning. They have a problem teaching. So this is something we do to each other. If someone is unmotivated, sad, depressed, and it happens in the workplace, then we can do things differently. It's really stupid to say to that person, be brave. You're as brave as you can be. And if you're threatened, or if you feel that, oh, I'm not allowed to put criticism on anyone, then you get afraid. And we can all be cowards. And we can all be afraid. It can differ. And it's how we do this together is really important. It really, really is. And I want to take another story just to explore this a little further, because I went to dinner with a friend. And we were in a really nice environment. And just beside us, there were 2 people engaged in a really, really difficult recruitment situation, an ordinary date. And you also have to figure out, is something happening here? Am I getting the job? Is it just a 1 hour? Is it for the rest of my life? It's really important. And the man in this situation, he was really insightful. He really knew who he was, and he really wanted to tell immediately. So he said in the beginning of the dinner, he said really loud, we heard everything because we sat really close, and their conversation was much more interesting than ours. So I shamefully listened. But the man said really, really loud and clear, and one thing that you should know, I'm a really, really funny person. I'm so funny. I'm probably the funniest person you will ever meet. You can ask anyone, I'm so funny, objectively funny, so funny. I'm really, really humble. I'm not a person that brags over myself. I'm not that kind of person. I really want to be the fly on the wall and just listen to you. Sorry, don't interrupt me. We want to say, I'm really good at listening. Yes, I'm really good at listening. The really funny thing was that in the end of the dinner, we understood that she didn't have the chance to say anything, and she didn't laugh once. But then the waitress came, a really good-looking waitress, and she went to the ladies' room, and the waitress and the man, they changed the phone number. But the thing was that the waitress, she laughed at everything he said, and he listened really carefully for everything that she said. Are you funny? It depends. Are you brave? It depends. Are you a leader? It depends. Are you a sexist? It depends. You are what you do, and you will do differently in different situations. None of us hold certain things that are a constant, nor values or nor behaviors. And that's why it's so important on what we do. And in that sense, it's really important to understand what we mean by diversity. If we need to understand what is a human being, what is diversity? And we have a history where we thought that diversity was what we looked like. If we looked differently, we were differently, and we would do different things. But that's not true. That's scientifically not true. So we left racism behind as a scientific fact. But the beliefs are still there. And this is 100 years ago in Swedish, it's a picture that is from a school in Sweden 100 years ago. And if we take ourselves to this time, and I went to a restaurant in Stockholm, and I read on the menu because I really work with diversity. And I wanted to show the people who came there a little piece on what they were doing and how they thought about things. And of course, it drew my attention because I'm really interested in these questions. And I could read on the menu, at Hotel Skeppsholmen is a true believer of diversity. Our staff comes from different cultures with different languages. Hotel Skeppsholmen, you can talk to the staff in Swahili, Greek, or sign language. And that's good enough. Because that's something that you know, and something that someone else would need, and that is something that you do. You do language, you speak Swahili. You do sign language. It's a diversity of knowledge that meets diversity of needs from the customers. And that is diversity. But then suddenly there's another part of this text. Our college, Piotr, is deaf and comes originally from Poland. He works primarily with our breakfast and our conference lunches, but sometimes he will serve you as well. Dinner and a show. But what he is not important. It's what he do. And people are not puppets for your satisfaction and for your high standards. We are humans. And it's not good being born in Poland, it's never bad. It has nothing to do with anything else. I was born in Mexico, but I can't speak Spanish. I can say, una grande cerveza, por favor. And that's not a phrase you should use very many times, because then you get drunk. It's not very healthy for you. And then I know another phrase, ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? That's, you get drunk to the library, that's what happens. I don't speak Spanish. But my father, born in Sweden, a white Swedish male, he worked in Mexico. So this experience of working in Mexico, and he knows Spanish. Because we can learn anything. And je peux parler français un peu, because I went to school. You can learn anything. I have no relatives from France. It's not genetic. It's something that you have to learn and something that you do. So my problem with this is, in the modern world, with the conflict we have when there are leaders like Bolsonaro in Brazil, like Donald Trump in the United States, Marine Le Pen and other nationalists that believe in racism, that believe that your value is based upon how you look like, what you are, not what you do. A person that sends 15,000 troops to the border because Mexicans are coming. Because they are Mexicans, not other things that they do. Because what they do is seeking asylum, and that's a human right. It's not illegal to seek asylum. So that's the world we live in, and then it's really important for me to upgrade diversity as well. Because I read a lot of people that want to recruit people, you know, the ads, and sometimes they say, for this job, we're really looking for a woman with another ethnic origin. And every time I saw that kind of ad, I gave it to my father. Because he holds those things that they think that I have because I was born the place I was born. But we're not what we look like. What you see is not what you get. It's what we do that you get. But if you want a white male in the 70s, then you can get me. I'm not what I look like. I hold more of the ideas and fantasies of what a man are than my dad does. We're not what we look like. And diversity is not the exterior. It's what's inside, and it's what you do. And I think that this is so, so important to understand that the only way of working with diversity is to keep yourself in the middle. Acknowledging the rule of law that says you can't value a person upon what they look like. That's why we have laws against discrimination. And you have to acknowledge the rights they have to be what you want, to look like what you want, and to make things happen at the workplace that is fair and is filled with dignity. That's the basis of this. And when I have read over 300 documents concerning equality and gender equality and diversity in Sweden. And every workplace I come to, and when they say that we have diversity here, and I said, interesting, how do you know that? And then they say, well, we have this amount of women, this amount of men, this amount of people born in Sweden, and this amount of people born somewhere else. And they start to list all the parts of the law against discrimination. I haven't seen one policy document that acknowledges the human rights and the law against the discrimination, because that holds us all responsible not to value the way you look like, but the things that you do. I never heard that. It doesn't matter what you look like and what you are, it depends on what you do. And the responsibility we have is to secure that when we choose between people, when we recruit, when we put salary, when we make advantage, a possible chance for advantage, it should not be based upon the things that we look like. That is discrimination. And for that we are all responsible. And it's not a walk in the park. This is really difficult to do. But it's not impossible. It's never impossible. So I want to end this with this principle, this fundamental principle that I talked about at the beginning, about meeting each other equal in dignity. And I want to show you a short clip of a former Ku Klux Klan member who really, as a big racist, he did things that were really, really bad. He followed this man forever, and he really was doing things that you're not supposed to do. But suddenly, he gave up. And he gave up because this referent always met him with dignity. And the hardest thing of all, a sense of humor. It's not easy to pull a joke when someone is threatening your life. But I want you to see this because it tells you something of the importance of being equal in dignity and what keys it holds.
In '79, I think you would have been about 22, you went to a radio debate with the Reverend Wade Watts, who was the state leader of the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, who worked with Martin Luther King. Yes. And when you got to this debate, he held out his hand for you to shake.
Yes, he did.
Did you hesitate?
He caught me off guard. See, I'm expecting this black militant to come in with a great big afro this big and an African dashiki on with bones hanging around it and a button on that says, I hate honkies and death to crackers, you know, all that stuff. And I figured he'd have on
You seriously thought?
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I thought he'd come in there carrying a boombox, blaring out the theme from Shaft. I figured he'd flash the switchblade at me and go, black is beautiful, honky. I'm going to kill all you white devils, you know. That's what I thought I was going to see. So when the door opened up and in came Reverend Wade Watts, and he's wearing a suit and a tie, and he's carrying a Bible, and he walks up and puts his hand out to me. He goes, hello there, Mr. Clare. I'm Reverend Wade Watts. I just want to tell you, I love you and Jesus loves you. And I mean, I'm shocked, you know. And then he puts his hand out, and I'm shaking his hand without thinking, this wasn't what I was expecting. Then I realized I just broke a clan rule, and he jerked my hand back, you know. And I started looking at my hand, which he saw that, and that was meant as an insult. The clan rule book says the physical touch of a non-white is pollution. And I thought, I just shook hands with a black person, and he sees me looking at my hand. He goes, don't worry, Johnny, it don't come off. and you know, I start calling him names. I go, you no good, sorry, bleep, 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 you mother this, you this, you that. And he looked at me and goes, God bless you, Johnny. He says, you can't do enough to me to make me hate you. I'm going to love you, and I'm going to pray for you whether you like it or not. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I had never had that happen to me before.
A few years later, you burnt down his church, didn't you?
Set fire to his church. See, what happened was we started off going by his house, calling him names. We got no response. Threw trash all over his lawn. Got no response. We showed up with our sheets and hoods and stood out there in his yard. Said, get on out there, boy. We got something for you. And he comes outside. And he goes, boys, Halloween's 4 more months away. I got no trick-or-treat in here for you. Come back in October. And he goes back in the house.
That's a place, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't know how to deal with this. And so the client goes, you got any more bright ideas? I said, I don't know. I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. So we burned across the street from his house. He came outside and asked us if we needed hot dogs and marshmallows for a barbecue, you know. So finally, I said, I'm tired of messing with him, and we set fire to his church. And they put the fire out before the church was destroyed. And I remember I called him up, disguised my voice, and I said, hey, boy, you better be afraid. We're coming to get you, boy. You don't know who we are, but we know who you are. And he goes, hello, Johnny. He goes, a man like you takes the time to call me. I'm so honored. And I said, let me do something for you. He goes, dear Lord, please forgive Johnny for being so stupid. He doesn't mean to be so odd. He's a good boy trying to get out somewhere there. And I hung up the phone on him and said, how dare him. And so the funniest thing that happened with him, though, is I didn't know what to do. And I was at my ropes in. And one day we was watching him, and he went into a restaurant. So we got a bunch of us together, and about 30 of us went in there and surrounded him. And he had this chicken there on the table at the restaurant. And I walked up and I said, hey, boy, this restaurant's for white people only. We don't want you here. I said, so I'm going to make you a promise. I said, I promise you we're going to do the same thing to you that you do to that chicken. So you think real hard before you touch that chicken. So he looked at me and looked at the clan. Then he picked up the chicken and he kissed it. And when he kissed the chicken, the whole restaurant acted just like y'all did. They all start laughing, you know, and everything. And I looked up and even the clan was laughing. That was funny. I said, every one of you outside. I'm outside and they're doubled over laughing. I'm going, you guys are going to get suspended and lose your rope for 2 weeks. I said, I'm getting tired of this. And I'm hollering at them and yelling and they're laughing. I heard a horn honk and Reverend Watts driving off going, bye, Johnny, you know, and stuff. And that's how he chose. That's how one old black, we never bothered him again. And that's how one old black man defeated the entire Ku Klux Klan. Because he used this instead of Braun.
And he used this too, a very brave man.
Yeah.
And they became really good friends when he left the clan. And they traveled for several years talking about the importance of meeting with human dignity, equal human dignity, no matter what you believe. And unfortunately, both of them are dead now. But I had the opportunity, I found him as an old journalist as I am, I found him in Louisiana, and I made a TED conference, TEDx Södervägen, several years ago. And I asked him, we talked on Skype the whole summer, and I said, could you come to Stockholm? I can't pay anything because you're not supposed to gain any money out of this, because it's interesting. And he said, of course. And we have 30 speakers from all over the world, and here's Graham Tainton, a Swedish choreographer who lived in South Africa. Both experience what it means to value a person on the way you look like and not on the inside and the things that you do. And the content of the character. And my oldest daughter doesn't like it in school. It's better, but she doesn't like it. And I have to steal 2 minutes from you because I'm going to do this just because I have to. Because I'm not going to see them until Friday. So I'm going to send this video to them. Because I can tell her that she needs to be brave. But how brave can she be if everyone is turning against her and no one is listening? And I owe that obligation to her. So I need to send this message to her. So if you could you help me? Just pushing this red button. And I'm going to take this in Swedish because she's not very good at English. Hej Anin, hej Juni, här är mamma. Jag är på konferens, jag ska peka var någonstans. Jag vet att vi inte dansar så mycket hemma. och det sörjer jag. Men det här är till er. Jag älskar er så mycket. Det har tagit mig ett liv att skita i vad andra tycker om mig. Men det är för att jag har haft människor runt omkring mig som tror på mig. Och jag tror på er. För alltid. Det här är till er.
Edna. I think from the energy from the room really shows that this was an inspirational speech, and you gave us a lot of things to think about. And fortunately, we still have a bit of time to sort of develop into Edna's thoughts. So now, dear audience, it's you have the possibility to ask Edna any question that you like. You can do that either by raising your hand or by sending us a text message, and again, you'll find the number on your card. Again, please remember to mention your name.
Part of the organization, or you vote for a political party, that's when you represent someone else. You need to have the mandate from other people to represent them. Within a union, you can be a representative. As a parent you are, because they are the children. But it's nothing I can decide upon without a mandate. So I can't represent women born in Mexico that are part of a minority group that has ADHD and Asperger, because they're not a group. So you represent yourself in that sense, and but there are organizations that you can be a representative, and I've been there very many times. And that's really important, because you don't represent your other people that look like you without their mandate, because they think differently. They want different things. Perhaps they don't think and act on all the things you do. And when I want service, or now I meet a policeman or whatever, my trust and my value is of what that person do, how the person helps me, how the person addresses me, how the person really respects me and shows me dignity. A person that looks like me can be really threatening or bad and do bad things. It doesn't matter. Trust comes from your actions and from the person that you do something to. And you have to gain that trust. And then you do your job the way you're supposed to. Every one of us are responsible to treat anyone we meet with the same respect, even if they don't look as us. That's the thing that we have to represent in our actions.
I think we have a question. Do we?
Yes.
Yeah. The microphone is on its way.
Hello? Yeah. It's a bit out of subject for this course, but it's about what we do and how we law against what we wear. In Denmark, we have crime issues with a gang, and we made a law in Denmark to punish them harder if they wear a logo from that gang. Is it wrong to make a law about what you're wearing? Because when it's an action for the people to wear it, they choose to wear this logo and they represent something that we, the government, have decided it is wrong. It's a gang, they do crime. How do you feel about a law like that?
I think it is really important to have law that is based on actions, because who is going to decide what is the wrong way of looking or the wrong way of wearing a t-shirt? And I know there are different laws in different countries. Some countries ban for you to choose to have what is the
Hijab.
Hijab, for example. And some countries forbid that, and some countries force people to have it. And for me, it's important that you decide yourself what to wear and hold yourself responsible for the things that you do. We have also
and equality by 50% men, 50% women. How is there a way you can measure equality then?
Yes.
Tell us.
It's how you, for example, how do you value people in the workplace when it comes to when you recruit someone, when you put salary on someone? It's what you do on the basis of what you choose. And if you choose based on discrimination, that's a crime against the law against this discrimination. Being holding equality is the thing. It's how you do it. It's not what you look like on a picture. It could be half women, half men, and it could be really bad things that is going on, bullying or abuse or silence or suppressing people. In the end of the day, is what the people do. And when you recruit someone, you can't recruit someone because they are male and that's enough. You have to recruit them in a different way, and if you don't, then that's a crime also. So you have to have strategies in every room where you value people and the way that you treat each other at the workplace, because there's a rule of law and also the fair playground of acting interact with each other. And our laws are really clear on that. Actually, they are. Yeah.
We take the last question.
Yeah, I don't know the English word, positive särbehandling.
Yeah.
Positive discrimination.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
There is one. There is possible to do that, but there is one ruling in European law that makes it possible. But if you are going to act on it, you can't. That can't be the aim from the beginning. That you're going to choose these people instead of this. You can't have that as an aim. You have to follow 6 different rules in order to do that. And I've never seen a situation when they are followed or understood, and that people that use it actually read that part of the law from the European Union and the way that was worked out. So you can't just decide that I want this group instead of that. If you do that, that's discrimination. So, and quotation in Sweden is forbidden. Because you can't have one law that says that I'm not supposed to be valued because I'm a woman, and then have another law that says you can value me because I'm a woman. It's difficult to hold that in law. And that's why in Norway, for example, where you have possible to do it within corporations, in bolagsstyrelser, and that's possible because they're not employed. If you were to do it within the workplace when you employ people, that's against the law even in Norway. But when it comes to bolagsstyrelser, that is something that you are chosen to do in another way. It's not, you don't hold a position in employment. So if you were to make a quota within the workplace, then you have to change the law from the ground. And we don't have any of those laws in Europe at all.
Thank you, and thank